the disastrous wildfires in California. Bless the first responders for their courage and commitment. Help us to not only appreciate your gifts to us, but to also express that appreciation by giving our patience to others, by exercising grace for those around us, by accepting differences without fear or anger, and by giving support to those who, by example, teach kindness to and understanding of all. We ask that you rid our world of hate, bitterness, and envy, and help us to remember the critical need to praise and honor character, and to continue to honor the Rotary principles of truth, fairness, and goodwill, and to work for the benefit of all. Help us to strive in this year to live with gratefulness and grace, and to bless others with hope as you have blessed us. All this we offer and we ask as we each in our own way pray. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. We have a few announcements. I want to remind you of is our dues. I was trying to think of a song to sing to help you remember, but if you haven't paid your dues, you can take care of that. That would be fantastic. If you don't know it, you take care of that. Just see Joanne, and she will be sure to let you know and help you to get that taken care of. The last bit of January birthdays. That's exciting. So our January birthdays are Dominic Ross, Brad Burney, George Case, Leonard Lee Fisher, Amber Greenwood, Russell Woodley, Ryan Luna, K-Met, Sabrina Moore, Susie Cagle, Carol Matthews, Joe Riley, Peggy Rush, and Chuck Bolt. Barry, could you lead us in singing happy birthday to our Rotarian friends?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Rotarians. Happy birthday to you.
Fantastic. Isn't it exciting to have a new year? It's going to be wonderful. I'm going to bring up Sabrina Moore, who is going to give us an update and a request for challenge. As she's coming up here, if you haven't picked up the most recent edition of the Waco, and you need to. It features our very own Sabrina Moore, and I couldn't be more proud to know her, to participate in Rotary with her, and to be her friend. And it was also her birthday yesterday, and I forgot, so.
Hello everyone. If I'm here, then it's usually because I want to talk about Challenge. So Challenge is 12 days away, and as usual, I'm going to open with some trivia. So just shout it out. These trivia questions are pulled from the general knowledge trivia that all of our high school students answer, and they go through this trivia for about 30 minutes. So if you can imagine that, just rapid fire answering questions. These are some of our best and brightest students. So let's see what you guys can get here. Alfred Hitchcock's directed movie featuring a detective with extreme acrophobia. Name the movie. Shout it out. Vertigo. A Babylonian king who names a code of laws that was issued around 1750 BC. Yes, Hammurabi. Type of massive star that the sun will become once it expands, which includes stars like Red Giant. This team lost Super Bowl 34 to the Rams after Kevin Dyson was tackled 1 yard short of a touchdown. Tennessee Titans. A museum dedicated to this product is located in Austin, Minnesota. What Hormel food product gets its name from a contraction of spiced ham? But this phase originates from there are no troubles in sweaty foods. This composed the Nutcracker as well as 1812 Overture Tchaikovsky. This country's independence would come after the Treaty of Constantinople and the Battle of Nagarina, leading to a crushing defeat for the Ottoman Empire. So name this country with its capital at Athens. Okay. 2 more. We'll do sports. This team beat the Denver Broncos 70-20 in Week 3 of the 2023 season. What NFL team plays home games in Southern Florida? Miami Dolphins. Last one. Vaccines against this disease were developed by Albert Sabine and Jonas Salk. Wanted to end with a rotary one. So those are just a few of the questions that these students go through rapid fire for about 30 minutes. If you don't know, this is a single elimination competition with our area high school students. We have 13 teams competing this year, and I'm really proud of some of the teams. So I want to tell you, it's McGregor versus Waco, first round. La Vega against West. Early College High School out of Killeen coming against Moody. Troy against Parker Heights. Vanguard against China Springs. And we have 3 schools with a bye, Crawford, Belton, and Midway coming in with a bye. So very exciting, and I'm very proud when we have smaller schools like Troy and West bringing students to this competition. It doesn't cost anything to compete, and so we hope that all schools can come. And if you want to be on the committee and help me reach out to schools, I would love to have people helping. I also need 1 or 2 additional judges and hosts the day of the competition. Even if you can't really commit this year, I would love to have you next year. I can let you know when and where it's going to be if you just want to stop in and see what it's all about. On the table is a flyer. This is for me. My email is on here. And what I need from you today and in the next week is swag. If a team loses, they go home empty-handed, and so I like to make sure that every single student has a swag bag. If you have a business, I will take your promo items. We have about 100 bags, and we have 15 teachers. So if you have like 15 nicer things, I'll give them to the teachers. If you have 50 pens and 50 pencils, I'll split them up. I will take anything. I will come get them, or you can drop them off. Or you can Venmo me if you just want to give me cash, which is super easy. I also take cash, which I've already gotten some this morning. I sat at a really great table, I guess. Jim Newcomb gives me $50 every year. Kay Paul raises 50, and then Eddie raised that too. So please hand me cash. I buy bags, candy, anything to put in our swag bags. I've already gotten passes from the Mayborn, Walter Partners, Lisa Saxon gave me a bag of pins. Seed House Creative does our flyers every year, so everyone has something they can give, and I can put it to good use. So please email me, let me know if you can help, or just hand me cash on the Thanks.
Thank you, Sabrina. We'll bring up Buddy Edwards to introduce.
Happy New Year. It's great to start another year at Rotary. And we are delighted today to have Dr. Kevin Villegas. He's the Dean of Intercultural Engagement and Division of Student Life Initiatives at Baylor. Back with us at Rotary today. In 2024, Dr. Villegas made a presentation to us dealing with intercultural engagement work. Today he will give us an introduction to the Bridging the Gap curriculum that's used at Baylor. He's discussing the bridge building within the context of civil discourse. He's going to go through a listening module that we can use in our interactions with others. To briefly touch upon navigating tensions constructively. His role at Baylor, Dr. Villegas is responsible for dealing with comprehensive approach to empower students in the vision of student life, and the staff there in the creation of a more vibrant, inclusive, and supportive campus environment as an expression of the Baylor University mission. He has more than 2 decades of administrative leadership experience in a variety of roles with higher education and also secondary educational settings. I think information and insights that Dr. Villegas will provide us today will be more beneficial for us as we engage with others in our community. And so let's welcome Dr. Villegas to Rotary.
Well, good afternoon and Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for having me back. I was here, I think it was in July of last year, so I must have been okay. You invited me back. I didn't get band at all. So what I'm going to share today is really about a curriculum that Buddy had mentioned, Bridging the Gap. So we've been doing a lot around civil discourse at Baylor, and this does fall under intercultural engagement. This is really how we navigate differences of all kinds. And we knew going into an election year this past fall that we would really want to equip our campus community to disagree well with each other and to listen, to build bridges. And so this work comes out of that and also out of a grant that we received. So I'm just going to go through it quickly. What I'm sharing with you is really 8 weeks of training in, I guess, less than 40 minutes, right? So I pared down to the essentials. It's going to feel like it's happening fast, and you're probably going to want more. And we did discuss that, but I think you'll get some things out of it still that can be useful and helpful to you. So I'll just jump right into it without further ado then. And so I'm going to move around as well. This is going to be interactive, so this is going to go quickly. So civil discourse in higher education, that's kind of the context. I just pulled some headlines real briefly of different college universities are really trying to approach this. I actually went to a conference hosted by the American Association of College Universities in DC last April. And there were groups there that were organizations willing to fund college universities to do this sort of work, to build civil discourse, resources on their campus communities, recognizing that higher ed in some ways is kind of the last line of defense. Prepare our next generation of leaders to do better than that quote-unquote adultism have been doing, right? To talk to one another and to listen to one another and to build bridges of understanding. And so Baylor, like other institutions, we set a group there. This is something we want to be engaged with. This is missional for us because we're preparing leaders and servants for future roles in the United States and across the world. Most of our students aren't going to go on and serve in monocultural environments. They're going to be in diverse environments. And so knowing how to navigate different small times is really important. And so Baylor really wants to do that in a distinctive way. And so there's lots of different approaches to civil discourse. We landed on one we call Bridging the Gap, or Bridging Over. Largely because we got a grant from Interfaith America to do that work. And so this is really about helping our campus community and the larger Waco community to talk to each other and to know how to do that well. But really I see this as something bigger. This is one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver, is one of my favorite poems of hers. It's called Song of the Builders. So I'll share this real quick and then hopefully set some context for the spirit behind why we do this. She says here, on a summer morning, I sat down on a hillside to think about God, a worthy pastime. Near me, I saw a single cricket was moving the grains of the hillside this way and that way. How great was its energy, how humble its effort. Let us hope it will always be like this, each of us going on in our inexplicable ways, building the universe. And so, giving these skills to our students, when they have interactions with each other on a daily basis, in the classroom, outside the classroom, when they go home for breaks, and have conversations with their family members, and maybe you're reflecting on the past holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas break, and thinking about times you spent with them where maybe you don't see eye to eye on very important issues, right? All these interactions that we have on a regular basis is what we want to build a universe with, right? What kind of universe, what kind of future do we want? So really trying to help us understand that this isn't just about developing skills, and these skills are important, it's really about building our future together. So hopefully that frames this for you a little differently. So I'm going to be quickly because we haven't had a lot of time, but as a result of going through this with me, I hope you'll be able to articulate some of the essentials that we're talking about towards effective bridge building work, be more inspired and willing to participate and practice bridge building skills, have increased confidence in your skills, and then also think about ways that you can incorporate some of what I'm talking about in your daily lives. So we couch civil discourse at Baylor, and this is the co-curriculum in intercultural engagement, because we're actively developing our students' intercultural maturity. And that's the ability to accept challenges from, and at the same time build interdependent relationships with different people from other backgrounds. And so we really want our students to have the skills to know how to do this. Because again, They're going to go on and serve and lead in diverse environments. And we really want Baylor to be known as a place where we disagree well. We want people who are looking for our students to graduate programs, medical schools, or to hire our students to basically say, Baylor students, Baylor graduates know how to disagree well. They know how to think critically, they know how to build bridges of understanding, and to work together towards the common good. And so here's some quick definitions for us. As I said, this is going to be the distinctive of Baylor, but we also want this to spread out to the larger Waco community. And so towards this, we emphasize the importance of participating in civil discourse with a bridge building mindset. There's lots of different approaches to civil discourse. Bridge building is a particular one, and I don't have time to really go into the others, but there are lots of other approaches to civil discourse. In civil discourse, there's broad definitions, just like we would have in leadership. Civil discourse has some broad definitions, but what we've taken some broad definitions and made it specific to Baylor. So we say Baylor civil discourse is the practice of relationally deliberating, and that's important. Relationships matter. Relationally deliberating on matters of significant concern in ways that aim to expand knowledge and promote mutual understanding. And so it's not just disagreeing about whether or not In-N-Out is better than Whataburger. In-N-Out is clearly better than Whataburger. It's really about matters of significant concern. So when we're talking about civil discourse, it's not civil in the sense that we want to be civil with each other kind. That's a component of it. But it really comes from civitas. It's matters that are important to all of us, right? So when we're talking about civil discourse, it's those sorts of things. But these skills can help you when you're having a disagreement about other things as well. Bridge building. So when we're talking about bridge building, this is a little bit of a long definition, but this is the work done to intentionally bring people from diverse identities and divergent ideologies together so that they can engage in civil discourse, but doing that in ways that center on dignity, openness, honesty, ways that we demonstrate respect and value for others so that we can foster those interdependent relationships, all in pursuit of a common good for all. So again, this is really about building bridges toward the future together, right? And it does happen in relationships. But when we do this, it's really important that we're bringing people from divergent perspectives together. And so part of what we've done with the grant money, we actually provided training for both students and faculty. So we have a cohort of bridge building fellows for students and a cohort of bridge building fellows for faculty. They've gone through these 16 hours really of training to go ahead and be these fellows across campus. And so the program is growing in popularity. People are asking how they can be a part of it. So we're now at the stage where we're going to scale this a little bit. But to have bridge building fellows and people who are committed to this work across campus is really going to help shape the culture. And it just becomes a norm at Baylor that we know how to disagree well. We're not afraid to engage in disagreement of all kinds. And so I'm going to talk about what bridge building is, what it isn't, and then we're going to get into some of the interactive pieces. And so what it is an exercise in courage and trust. It takes courage, it takes trust in order to really do this work. If that's not present, it's a lot more difficult. And it is about humility and curiosity. We want people to, rather than shun people who don't think or believe the way they do, and judge it as different and maybe deficient, but instead be curious and open-minded about the person's perspectives. And we also talked about having a strong back and a soft front. So it doesn't mean you go in there and you leave all your convictions and beliefs at the door when you're doing bridge building. It's having a strong back, being strong in the convictions that you have, the things that you believe, but also having a soft front, being able to absorb the things that you are hearing. So posture is very important in this work. And it is very skills and practice-based, which you'll see here in a moment. And then we also see it as an opportunity to challenge ourselves and to grow in lots of ways. What it isn't, it's not comfortable. So oftentimes when our students get into this work, they're very uncomfortable. But they find that as they develop these skills, the more confidence they have in leading into this discomfort. And so our students are wanting these skills. Employers are wanting these skills, right? And so we have to recognize that it's going to feel uncomfortable at first. It's just like learning a new sport, a musical instrument, or a foreign language. It's challenging at first, but you have to stick with it. And it's also not about moral grandstanding, virtue signaling, or proving a point, right? So we don't want people to go into bridge building conversations thinking that it's a debate, and I'm going to out-logic you and to mention things that demonstrate that maybe you are more enlightened than another person. So it's really not about that at all. But it's also not a watered down, mushy, little kind of kumbaya. It's not like, let's just agree to disagree, let's listen to each other, but we're really not expecting any change. This was a nice exercise, and then kind of leaving and saying, you keep believing what you believe, I'll believe what I believe. It's not that either. And it's not, like I mentioned, issue debate. You're not coming together to debate issue. You're really trying to understand one another. And so I really like the metaphor that you drew of bridge building, because when you have a bridge, it's really to cross some sort of chasm. And typically when you're building bridges, you have to come at it from both sides, ideally. And bridges have tension. Tension is really important and for a bridge to be sound, right? And so we need that tension. So we really want our students to see that there's a chasm, whether it's about an issue or something larger that has to be crossed. And you're both going to commit to coming at that and coming together. And there's going to be tension in that. So we really try to help students prepare for that. And when we curate divergent perspectives, so our bridge building fellows, they come from a variety of ideological perspectives and beliefs. So part of what we do when they become bridge building fellows, we do a questionnaire survey with them, and we know who lean more conservative and who lean more liberal. We're talking about political ideology. We also know where they stand as far as their belief systems. And then we intentionally curate them being with someone that's different than them so that they can do bridge building. It's not, you're not really doing bridge building when you're just sharing with someone who believes and thinks the way you do. So it's important that we have some disagreement. And so what is involved? It's about respect, it's about strictly relationship and cooperation. So our bridge builders, we want them to respect the identities of others, even when they don't agree with them. We want them to build mutually inspiring relationships across lines of difference. And then we also want them to engage in mutual action with people who differ from them around issues and shared concerns. And so it's not too different. You can probably see some of that in the four-way test, right? Goodwill, better friendships, beneficial to all concerned. So there's certainly some connections here to the four-way test. And so this is one of my favorite quotes. I didn't put it said it. It's been attributed to Martin Buber, a Jewish philosopher, but I didn't find it really sourced anywhere. But he says here, the mark of all true dialogue is a mutual willingness to change. Otherwise, it's just interrupted love. And so when we're doing bridge building, we're actually not after changing the other person. So I've kind of adapted this quote to say the mark of all true bridge building is the mutual willingness to understand. So we want everybody to go into conversations with a mutual willingness to understand the other's perspective. Doesn't mean agree, but really try to understand. Otherwise, it's just a waste of everyone's time. You just have time just arguing with someone, maybe even you're more entrenched in your own views because you didn't go into the conversation with the right posture. Make sense? All right, so we go over this invitation to bridge building with our students when we do this work on campus. So I'll go through this quickly. The intention is to take seriously the things that others hold dear. If it matters to one person, that will matter to us all. You're not here to convince anyone that they are wrong or try to change them. We are curious why people think the way that they do, and rather than thinking we are diminished by listening carefully to ideas we might disagree with, we trust that we are enhanced by it. We believe that there's more common ground and experiences than we anticipate. When there isn't, you can fundamentally disagree with someone and still respect for asking them others. So we take some time to go through some reflection with students to ask them questions about this, but we don't have time to do that. But I did want to show it to you. So bridge building, I'll go through this quickly also just to kind of say, it starts with a sense of identity, right? Who you are, the things that shape you, the things that you believe, these are really become part of your identity. So you're really coming at this work grounded or hopefully really have a strong sense of your own identity. And then the next part of it is your worldview. Understanding and thinking critically about how you view the world. This is really about your life philosophy, your belief system, right? This is what you believe about the world. And so you're bringing that into these conversations as well. But also with that, with your identity, with your worldview, having a vision, much like the poem I started with, Song of Builders, a vision about what kind of future you want for yourself and for our future generations. And then with that, once you have that established, then what do I need to know in order to work towards this vision in my own sphere of influence and in my own community? And then with that, you have skills. So now I know I have this knowledge base that I need to continue to develop. What are the skills I need to do this work? And then qualities. This is really about leadership qualities, your personality, those sorts of things that you bring into this work. So we talk about this when we go through this with our students as well. What it means to be a bridge builder and how to enter into bridge building work. And then this is an MLK quote. We're all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all directly. So this is just, again, a quote. We try to inspire our students to think about why they're doing this work. So we're getting into the interactive part now. And so this is tough in a room like this, and I know you all will date, but if you can find a partner, you might have to move to another table. And let's respond quickly to these prompts. What qualities make a person a good listener? And when was the last time you felt that you were listened to well by someone? So go ahead and take about 2 minutes to share with someone next to you these 2 prompts, and then I'll call us back together.
Somebody that's not somebody that's
All right, just for time's sake, I'll bring us back together. I'd love for you to call out what are some things you talked about in your group? What are some qualities? You call it out. Qualities of the listeners. They let you finish your sentence. Okay, great. Patience, active listening. Good. Any others? Truth to that. All right, well, thank you for that. We usually spend a lot more time on these prompts and reflection, but again, I'm hopefully giving you the essence of these things. But really, we want to talk about listening as a skill. And it's interesting, the first time I did this with students last spring, one of the students raised her hand, and it was almost as if she was speaking for her entire generation. She said, no one's ever really taught us how to listen. And then I had to think about my own life, and while I was a communication major as an undergrad, we talked about listening, but we really didn't talk how to listen, if that makes sense. So I think there's a lot of truth to that statement. I mean, how many of you were really taught in a formal way how to listen, how to develop these skills? If you were, then you're really ahead of us all. But listening is really continuing. So hopefully this is helpful, and hopefully you can all see this. But this continuum here, you see level 0, this is ignoring, right? And then all the way to deepest listening. I'm going to unpack these all a little bit quickly. But level 0, that's ignoring. I have a teenage son. He's sometimes at this level with me. Or sometimes he's at this level. So ignoring, someone's talking to you, but you're purposely not listening to them. You're ignoring them, right? That's level 0. Level 1, a lot of us do that, where we're waiting to speak. We know how to actually look like we're listening to the person, but in our mind, we're actually just pretend listening. We're formulating kind of a response, and we're not really listening to what the person is saying. So a lot of us do that, just waiting to speak. Level 2, this is selective listening. We're listening and paying attention to some things, but then we might want to latch on. We're looking for something to latch on to so that we can address that in particular. So it's really listening with a little bit of an agenda, selective listening. Level 3, this is better. We're listening attentively, but oftentimes we're doing this understanding from our own frame of reference. We're listening and then we're filtering things through our own frame of reference and not really trying to understand where the other person is coming from. And then level 4, this is much better. This is empathetic listening. This is understanding what the other's frame of reference. So this can still work. As someone else is speaking to you, you really have to think through all of the life experiences and things as much as that's possible. That's why it's helpful to do this in a relationship. Understand where that person is coming from as they're sharing and you're listening. And then level 5, this is the deepest level of listening. Listening completely beyond what's spoken. And that's not trying to read into it, but it is looking for some subtext, right? Really trying to understand the person and get an essence of what they're saying. So some of the skills we're going to talk about will help us get to this deepest level of listening. So if we're honest, we all cycle in and out of various steps of listening. We're not all going to operate at level 5 all day, all the time. That's just not possible. But it's helpful to reflect on how we listen when we consider, especially doing bridge building work. So hopefully this session, at the very least, it'll help you think about how you listen and how you do in listening. So we should work, especially when we're doing intentional bridge building work, we should work to move to this deepest level of listening on the spectrum. So how to listen. So this comes from Hafiz, a 14th century Persian poet, and he gives us this word of advice. How do I listen to others? As if everyone were my most revered teacher speaking to me their cherished last words. Now again, we're not going to listen to people all the time at this level, but when we are doing intentional bridge building work, we're talking about something really important. Remember, if it matters to the other person, it should matter to us. Then we're going to try to have this posture when we're listening to them. And that we're fully present with them. And oftentimes, if we're honest, we're so distracted. We have distractions in our pockets, in our purses, right? And so being fully present with someone is a rarity nowadays. It's really a very good gift. So I encourage you that when you're with other people, particularly talking about matters of importance, that you're fully present and with them. We're going to go over now 5 listening skills that we talk about in this bridge building work, and we're going to practice some of these. It'll seem like we're doing it quickly because we are, but we typically spend a lot of time on each of these. So I'm actually going to skip the last one that I mentioned, the complicated one, but we will practice some of these other ones. First one is silence, listening in silence. Second one is called footprinting. Third is encouragers. The fourth one is open-ended questions or prompts. And then this last one is sorting, grouping, and synthesizing. I'll talk about that last one because it is the most complicated. We're not going to really get into it. But it's really when someone's sharing with you something. For example, if the student is sharing with me how they hate their literature class, right? They don't like the books they're reading, the professors, teaching style, and the class where it meets, the location, right? So I might be able to hear those complaints if the person's talking about all 3 of those things, and be able to sort them and group them into different areas and say, it sounds to me like you really don't like the classroom. Tell me more about what would be your idea of classroom. So I'm sorting that, separating and grouping it separately so I can address them individually. So that's what that is, real quick, but we're not going to practice that one today. All right, so the first one, listening in silence. Students always say this is the most difficult one for them. And there's a reason for it, because most of us, when we're sitting with someone, especially if it's one-on-one and they're talking to us, we're not just sitting there not saying anything, right? But this is what this is. And there's a reason why we do it. Number one, it helps you to think about how you listen and to be more present and to just develop that self-awareness. But there are also times when someone is sharing something with you and it's really hard to hear what that person is saying. And sometimes the most appropriate response in those situations is just silence. It's just really listening and not giving a lot of feedback because of what is being shared. Maybe it's something that's really hard. And so the most appropriate response is to listen in silence. So I'm going to give you a prompt. We're going to practice this, right, in your pairs, or in your pairs. And we're going to go through this quickly. Some of you are going to say, oh, I didn't have a chance to finish. Finish at another time because we don't have time to go through. But we're going to practice this without adding anything. That means no nonverbals, no head nodding, no words of affirmation. Listen in silence and stillness with 100% presence. Listen with everything you got in that. Okay? You got it? All right, so here's the prompt. Describe your ideal vacation. I'm going to give you 30 seconds each. All right? This is just a practice. Okay? So go ahead and turn toward your partner or angle yourself toward your partner. If you can't find someone, just observe. Just observe another pair. And then give you 30 seconds to describe your ideal vacation. The other person, listen in silence. Okay, go ahead and go. All right, go ahead and switch. You might not have finished. Go ahead and switch. And then the other person share, the other person practice. Just in silence. Go ahead and go. Okay, go ahead and wrap up your final thoughts. I know you might not be able to finish, but let's come right back together. All right, I'd love some feedback. How was that for you? Anybody have any thoughts about that exercise? Okay, so it's hard not to do that nonverbal. In fact, I was watching some of you, and some of you are not good at it. I saw a lot of head nodding, right? But that just goes to show you that, it's hard, right? So, but this is again to help you be more self-aware of how you're listening. It's not that you're going to be listening to someone in complete silence all the time. But this is supposed to help you think about how you listen, okay? So again, good job. We'll move on. Second one is called footprinting. And this is really kind of what it sounds like. You're thinking about like in Texas, we get a lot of snow. But I grew up in the Northeast. When there's footprints in the snow, typically you stay in those footprints. And so this is really that in the conversation. So you only practice, you only use the words, the phrases that you heard from your partner. It's like when back what you heard, ensuring that you're fully present. And so you're not introducing any new words. So if someone tells you, I was really frustrated by that comment you made earlier, you wouldn't say back, I know you were angry, right? I didn't say I was angry, I said I was frustrated, right? So you're really trying to not add something to the conversation. You're really trying to focus in on what that person said and not add anything to it. Yeah, this is a little tricky because when you're focusing on footprinting, our students will tell us that, well, I was concentrating so hard on what that person was saying that I really wasn't listening to what they were saying. And that's true, but this is you're practicing this, we practice these skills together, and then over time, we put them all together, and then you're moving in and out of these different skills. And so one of the things that we do with our curriculum fellows is they go through this training, but then every month they meet to continue to practice and develop and hone these skills. And so over time, they just get more second nature. They're not thinking about it, they're just footprinting. And I know our students have come to us and said they become much better listeners as a result of this. And they're able to identify when they're not listening and how to change kind of their listening approach given a particular situation. So this one, I think I'm going to skip over this one just for time's sake. But the prompt I was going to give a share time when you had a difficult conversation with someone. So that person would share, you really try to listen. And again, focusing on footprinting, trying to pick up words and then share back those words that you heard. And so this is a skill that's really important as well. As you're listening to people, practicing this, and really focusing on the words demonstrates that you were fully present with the person and it respects them in a lot of ways. So this is another good one. Using encouragers. A lot of us do this. This would be new for you. This is really signals for the department that you're engaged, curious, following along. Typically, these are nonverbal, and I saw a lot of this when we were doing our first round, right? Someone's sharing and you're giving head nods, just showing that you're tracking, right? You could also use some verbal cues like, oh, that must have been hard, or something like that, right? Just affirmations, encouraging the person to keep going, that you're with them, you're listening. So this one, share about a time that you failed at something, right? So, yeah, a lot of us practice this one. And I know it's hard, especially since I'm only going to give you a minute to talk about when you fail at something. Actually, we'll do about 40 seconds, just because of time. So with your partner, I'm going to give you time to talk now so you can think about that moment that you want to share. Share with them a time when you fail at something, and the other person who's listening, practice your encouragers. Right? Practice your nonverbals, practice your eye contact, practice maybe some things that you might say to this person as they're sharing, okay? Some of you are already really good at this, and this comes second nature, but let's go ahead and practice this. So 20 seconds each, Sarah. Share about a time when you failed at something. Go ahead and go. Okay, we're going to have to cut your story short, but bring it to an end. And then go ahead and wrap up your final thought and then switch. We're going to switch the other person share a story, the other person listen with encouragement. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap this part up, so go ahead and finish your thoughts. So any thoughts or comments, questions to add about this one? Any thoughts about this one? Okay. All right, good. So the next one is asking open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are prompts. This is, as you're probably well aware, when a person can just respond yes or no. These prompts help to draw out further detail, adding your own perspective, or leading the person in a particular direction. So, examples of good prompts or questions. What would you make of that person's response in this situation, right? What's an example of what makes you angry, right? Tell me more about it, or what was that like for you? These are really good ones. You could probably think of other ones that you use, but the idea is to help draw out more. Again, it also is affirming the person and what they're sharing, that you're listening, that you're trying to understand. So these are really helpful to have in your back pocket. You do want to be careful with this one because you don't want to, in all of these skills, what you don't want to do is take the steering wheel from the other person. So if the other person is sharing with you, imagine they're in the driver's seat, they're driving, you let them guide the conversation. So you don't want to ask open-ended prompts or questions to drive the conversation in a particular way you want to go. So be careful of that. I mean, depending on the topic, sometimes that happens organically, but when you're doing this bridge building work, trying to understand the other person's perspective, you really want to let them continue to hold the steering wheel and to control the conversation. So be careful with this one. And again, we won't have time to practice this one, but we will ask, share a story of time when you learned to see something from a different perspective. So what we are going to do is we're going to put all these together and practice it. But before we get to that, I mentioned, or I thought you mentioned actually, some of what we do in this Bridging the Gap curriculum is really around skills, listening skills number one. But also the second piece is story sharing. So we really encourage students to know their stories that they carry with them and the stories of those that they know personally, people who are close to them, and to really always think about stories rather than regurgitating information or facts that they've heard through a podcast or through the news or something like that. So if you're talking about, let's say, immigration, you're trying to build bridges of understanding because maybe they look at immigration policies a little differently, right? So what we want to make sure happens is that our students are aware that when you're doing this bridge building work, you're not really trying to debate the other person. So the elephant in the rider is a way to help our students navigate the emotions that come up in a conversation like that. But when they're doing these sharing, we don't want them to say, oh, well, I heard this news report about this, fill in the immigration issue or story, but really to talk about it from a personal perspective. And really, so a prompt you might ask them is, tell us about a story or stories personal to you that have shaped how you view immigration policy. You see the difference? It's not tell us what you think about immigration policy, and you're just regurgitating things that you've heard, but you're really thinking about personal stories. Because stories help to connect. So I mentioned that to go to our elephant in the rider because the other piece of it, listening, story sharing, and navigating tension constructively. And this is really, really helpful in helping us think through how we navigate the emotions that come up with tense conversations. So think of the elephant in the rider. And by the way, I asked AI to develop this image for me. It's pretty good. And so the rider represents our control, our deliberate, conscious, reasoning, analytical thinking, right? So this is typically when we're engaged in a conversation, we think we're in control, right? Our rational mind is in charge, but really what happens is our elephant takes over. This is the automatic reactive reasoning or instinctive thinking, right? And so no matter how hard you try, if you are a rider on that elephant, when that elephant takes control, doesn't matter what that rider is doing, that elephant is going where it wants to go. And oftentimes, you think about hard conversations you've had where maybe you lost your cool. No matter how, maybe you went into that conversation thinking you weren't going to lose your cool, and you still did. That's because the elephant took over. So understanding that this is happening in tense conversations is really important. So then we help our students know how to navigate these. There's some mental traps that happen. These are flaws in our automatic thinking. These usually lead to exaggerated or negative thoughts about ourselves or others. Here, pretty real quick, jumping to conclusions. Again, if you're jumping to conclusion because you're listening to somebody and you're jumping ahead, you're really not listening to them. There's also all or nothing thinking in terms of extremes without being able to acknowledge there's a lot of nuance. And then the last one is labeling, assigning judgment label to someone or something based on only one trait. So let's say someone's wearing a particular t-shirt or a particular hat or a particular whatever, and this is the way our brains work. We will then go ahead and, based on past experience, describe everything that we think about that person onto that person. That makes sense? And so we want to be careful not to do that. So that's one, those are some mental traps. So in difficult conversations, our elephant can cause us to become overpowered by our emotions. At that point, it just takes over. Some signs that this might be happening. I'm sure you've all experienced this. Heart starts to beat faster, it tenses up, your breathing becomes quicker. And so we really help our students know how to tend to our elephant. So I asked AI to also do this. It messed up, we had the tusks, I don't know, gave an apple. But steps to empower your rider, right? Detect when your elephant might be leading, pay attention to the physical signs that you're experiencing, and then pause. Literally take a deep breath. Identify those automatic thoughts and determine whether you're in a mental trap. And then third, correct your elements discussed by reframing your thinking and leading into inquiry. Being curious, right? And so I've watched our students do this, and it's really fascinating. In the middle of it, they recognize they're getting a little heated. You might take a deep breath. This is really helpful. So again, the more we practice this, particularly in safe but uncomfortable environments, then the better our students will do when they actually go out into the wild, if you will, and disagree with other people. So I liken this, I was a Marine for 4 years, and we would go and do training at Camp Lejeune. We spend weeks up there doing all these exercises, live fire exercises, drills, you name it. But the reason why you do those things is so that when you actually get into the heat of battle, you don't have to think about it. It just comes second nature. So this is why we practice with our bridge building fellows doing this. So I encourage you to practice these skills as well. Invite someone you trust out to lunch or coffee and ask them to share with you some things and practice your listening skills. And then ask the person how you're doing with your listening skills. More than anything, I would love for each of you, and I say this to our students, I'd love for each of you to be known, among other good things, about being a good listener. And when someone thinks of you, when someone thinks of Sabrina, one of the first things they think is, Sabrina's a really good listener. Right? So if we all commit to trying to develop these skills, and there are skills that can be developed, then we're already a head start in trying to find some compromise. There was a gentleman who had to leave, and he thought, when you get to the point where you actually have to make a decision, because trying to understand another, that's all well and good, but actually some things need to be decided upon. There needs to be some leadership habits. But really this should precede all of that. You should really try to understand the complexity of the issue, try to understand another point of view before you start going into compromise mode and trying to find a way forward. It really starts with trying to understand the other person's perspective. All right, and so part of that elephant in the rider piece is between stimulus and response. This comes from Viktor Frankl. There is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Okay, short period of time left. I wanted to get to this. So here's the prompt, and we're going to practice all of these together. All right. So let me see. I have enough time. All right. Really hard to do this, but in 40 seconds each, describe what you think is the biggest problem facing the United States, and the other person practice all of these skills that we highlighted and listen to the person. And try to take this full body posture and with this mindset of peace that I talked about. Okay? So real quick, and then we'll wrap up, and then we'll go ahead. So 40 seconds with your partner, practice your listening, go ahead and go. All right, that first person sharing. Start to wrap up your thoughts. Wrap up your thoughts. All right, go ahead and switch if you haven't already. All right, that's another 20 seconds. Okay, go ahead and wrap up your final thought. We are getting close to time, so I'll bring us back together. So when we do this training, again, as I mentioned, we do it over the course of 8 weeks. We found out from our students last spring that that was a lot, so we were able to pare it down and deliver it in weekends, Friday and Saturday last fall. And we're going to continue to grow this program, but you can see how you can spend a lot of time on each of these. I knew this was going to be rushed, and I'm really just giving you a small taste of what we do. But hopefully, you'll walk away with these reflection questions, thinking about what stands out to you about these listening skills. And you can think about ways that you can develop and grow in yourself as a listener. I think we all have room for growth, myself included. And then think about what follow-up questions or concerns or critiques you have, and try to have conversation around that. And then think about how some of this can be helpful as you lead and serve in your communities. So I really want this to be practical for you. I know hearing from our students and our faculty fellows, they've all reported back actually having better conversations with their significant others, their children, their families, all by just being a little bit more attentive and intentional about the way that they listen to one another. So we only have like 1 minute, but are there any burning questions, comments, or concerns you want to get up with Jess? Yes, sir.
As an architect, it's obviously really important that I listen to my clients. But in general, I think of myself as a visual learner. And I feel like that really affects how well I listen. If someone's just talking, it's hard for me to stay connected and focused. But if somebody is speaking and there's visual things accompanying that, I just do a much better job of retaining the information. But I don't know if being a visual learner has that much to do with that.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm a visual learner as well. And certainly visuals help, illustrations, metaphors, those also help. So sometimes if you're in a conversation, ask the person maybe for an illustration to help you understand what they're saying. That could be helpful. But also just recognizing that that's an area of growth for you, and that our minds are very plastic. We can actually, our brains are very plastic. We can actually develop some of these skills where we're kind of not naturally graded.
Well, none of my clients can draw. That's
So thank you for that comment. There's also your personality, your life experiences, all that you bring into this. So just be mindful, be thinking about, and hopefully for the rest of the day, practice some of these. Practice with your friends, your family, your coworkers, and just keep developing these skills. You have to practice them for them to be developed. Just like a musical instrument, a sport, a foreign language, if you're not practicing these things with intentionality, then you're not going to hone them. So really want to encourage you to focus on that. And then just thank you. Thank you for your time, your attention. I know it was a lot, and I know it was quick. I knew it would be a challenge getting it all in, but you were great, and I appreciate the invitation here. Love to connect with you outside of this time, if any of you ever want to. But thank you for your leadership and your service in our communities.
We appreciate this. It was a wonderful reminder. Did you guys enjoy that? It did kind of remind me of when I taught preschoolers in Sunday school, and I would say God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you listen twice as much as you talk. But I was just trying to get them to be quiet. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing with us again, Buddy. Thank you, and Harry, thank you. And again, send Sabrina your good stuff, give her your money. Challenge is going to be an exciting day coming up here in a couple of weeks. And if you see our Rosemary anywhere, give her a little hug. Cheryl's here over the holidays, and we're just thankful she's here and doing better. Now if you stand with me, and let's do the forecast.